With the euro crisis and carbon tax dominating the agenda, there have been few pointers to this weekend's APEC summit in Hawaii, to be chaired by President Obama, who has grand plans to create a new trans-Pacific partnership. So what are the chances of any real progress in the trade arena? Well, I'm joined now by John West, an economic consultant who spent many years working in Asia for the Asian Development Bank Institute and the OECD, as well as earlier at the Australian Treasury. He's currently editor-in-chief of website MrGlobalisation.com. John West, welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Tiki.
What is the importance of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and why is President Obama so keen on it?
It is important for two reasons. One, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a framework for it will probably be agreed at this weekend. Over the medium term, it promises to create conditions for open markets and prosperity and economic growth. Secondly, it's important because the US has come back to trade policy. After the first 2 years of the Obama administration, there was no work on trade at all, but now trade is back on the agenda.
And presumably this will, if he pulls it off, this will raise the bar in terms of free trade agreements.
Certainly. The idea of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is to go much deeper than normal trade agreements and to look at things like investment, intellectual property and so on. And the design is to be a high-quality agreement.
I've heard it said that this is so that other players outside the group will then perhaps look, and I suppose we're talking about China in particular, who's recently joined the WTO, but who, partly because they've got state-owned enterprises and that sort of thing, haven't got that same level of trading, I suppose, compliance.
Certainly, Tiki. In fact, it's 9 countries, 9 of the 21 APEC economies that will be signing up to the TPP this weekend. And of the group that will not be part of that, China is one of them. And China doesn't make the grade at the moment in several ways: intellectual property, state-owned enterprises, and so on.
So how will this particular weekend be judged in terms of if it's a success?
This weekend will do nothing to solve the current problems in the world economy. The TPP is a good thing for the medium term. Secondly, we probably hear positive noises about resisting protectionism, and that's a good thing. And Prime Minister Gillard's idea of relaunching the Doha trade agreement, that will probably get positive noises. But quite honestly, the APEC meeting will not solve any of the current problems in the world economy.
Prime Minister Gillard has actually suggested this. Does she have a lot of credibility? Because the Doha talks ended in they were a bit of a flop in many ways.
Well, the Doha talks have been really as dead as a dodo for 10 years. And now is the time to try and start something new. And her idea is, of course, a good idea to try and start something new. Will it succeed? That is another question.
So I guess what you're saying is that in many ways, just being part of this trade, just negotiating at a time of crisis is a step forward.
Certainly it's a positive noise, and it's we have so much negative noise around at the moment, and optimism is a good thing if we can get it.
Just how much protectionism is happening at the moment? We've got this euro crisis, we've got all these different packages of stimulus that have been happening. I presume that's levels of protectionism, isn't it?
Certainly. Over the years since the Second World War, protectionism has declined massively, but it is true that since the GFC started a couple of years ago, there has been a rise in protectionism. According to the official reports of the World Trade Organization, it's not so much, but there's been a lot of what is called murky protectionism. One example in the US has taken a domestic tax off a special type of domestic beer, but not taken it off imported beer. Of course, it's a trick to protect local products. This is murky protectionism.
We do have the euro crisis looming to our north. Today, the IMF's Christine Lagarde in Beijing has said Asia is not immune, whether it is the trade channel or whether it is the financial sector. She, amongst others, I'm sure, is trying to convince China to be part of a European bailout. Is that a good thing? And what will Europe have to pay in return?
Europe's problems were created by Europe, and basically Europe has to solve its problems by itself. Europe's problems, of course, have a negative effect on the rest of us, and of course we all have to work together. China will contribute a little bit to the global solution, but it will not be a major part of the solving the financial problem in Europe, and quite rightly so. China is still a poor country. Its GDP per capita is just $4,000 a year.
And what sort of price will Europe have to pay, do you think?
Of course, many political prices, probably in terms of going soft on things like human rights and non-democratic actions.
The other thing that's happened, of course, in the US this year is that President Obama has secured a free trade deal with Korea. That was billed as something of a victory. Why was it so important for him?
Well, he had to fight it through Congress, which was not easy. That's true. But it's also a positive thing in the sense that he's leading on the trade agenda, which was on the back burner for 2 years. And trade is a positive thing to keep open at this time of crisis.
Finally, you've just returned from several years in Asia. For Australian businesses, where are the most exciting opportunities in Asia?
Australia, of course, is fully focused on selling natural resources to Asia, and that's a good thing. But the big story in Asia is, in fact, the rise of Asia's middle class. Depending on how you count it, there are hundreds and hundreds of millions of Asia's emerging middle class. That is a great market for Australian entrepreneurs who can invent and come up with good products for Asia's middle class.
Things like food security, I suppose.
It is true what you say. China, of course, has an emerging middle class, but China itself has big problems in terms of food security. You can be poisoned or killed in China by consuming a local product. And Australia, which produces high quality and safe products, can easily sell those to China and other emerging Asian countries.
John West, thank you very much for coming in, joining us today.
Thank you, Tiki.